We got the Hall of Famer Jay Foreman in the house.
Welcome, Mr. Little Foreman.
Welcome, man. Co-host
Little Jay.
Look, man, it's national. It's national like commitment day, Mr. Gates. So I'm just gonna let that slide. Just gonna let that slide, man. You know, we in here.
Well said. Snowy outside, slide.
And then to be honest with you, I almost didn't make it in. I got out of the car, almost busted my butt, man. Hey, your brother would have been down. Your boy would have been down bad in the parking lot.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Yeah, and that's the way. That's
you had that little thing around your neck.
No, I would have kept. My car alarm going off. So eventually, you would have came and got me.
I'm like, Jay, how long you been staying out here? Long enough that I got a white beard now.
Right? Little light chocolate ice cream, man.
Jay, let's go back. Okay, we're at 2022 right now. Let's go back to your time to when. Let me ask you this: Who was the first school that you got a letter from? If you remember that.
Oh,
who was the first school?
I mean, it was one of the Dakotas, South Dakota, North Dakota, North Dakota State. You know, and I was like, nah. I was like, I gotta do better than this.
It's like too early in the club, right? Like when you first get there, like,
I was excited because anytime you get your first letter, you're excited. And I think they saw me at we did like a quick little 7-on-7 jamboree. You know, it was just like one day.
Yeah.
You know, and they probably sent a letter to everybody that was, you know, a junior, senior. And, you know, then it kind of, you know, my recruitment was real slow. Like my stuff didn't heat up until, you know, we played Lane Kiffin and them in a rivalry game where Michigan State was there. Obviously Nebraska was there, you know, because they were checking out Lane Kiffin, and they had Dave Watson, who ended up being the Minnesota Player of the Year. Tight end, big old dude. And they had another guy that went to, his name was Lloyd Lee, but he was a Power 5 guy, but he's extremely intelligent, and he ended up going to Dartmouth. And so that's when my recruitment started to pick up, you know, like when, you know, we played them. But up until then, it was kind of, you know, slow moving, I guess. And then, you know, the rest was history. All you need is one big hit. Well, it was actually about 4 big hits, Gates. And next thing you know, Nick Saban's at the crib.
Well, no, Nick was at Michigan State at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. Dude,
and my
dad
was
knew it got real.
Yeah, and my dad knew about Nick Saban, and but my dad just broke it down. He's like, man, East Lansing is probably not for you, my brother.
You know, okay,
that was it. That's all he said. Is you know, it's not probably the right spot for you.
So Jay, what besides Nebraska? So on your recruiting trip, you know, we've heard that story before a few times. You know, because I know you was hanging. You know, it was a good time.
Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, I was like, dang, they got brothers in Nebraska.
Yeah,
and it was. We went to some parties.
Yeah,
I had a good time.
Yeah,
was that at Claremont?
No, it was at some house. It was like a house party.
We used to have a few of those back in the day, especially on 1010E. I mean, they were epic.
That's probably where it was.
Yeah,
that's the closing house.
Yeah, we had some.
Was there a little red light, the pool table?
Yeah, there was. That was 18 house. That was 18 house.
Man, we had some epic parties. Man, you know what to think about? I'm not going to go too much in the road here for the sake of radio, but I'm glad there was no one had camera phones and camera. And think about this, man. It was just fun when you were in the moment. You weren't trying to take a picture and post it to Twitter or Snapchat.
We was. I mean, when I was on the recruiting trip, like everybody obviously they're trying to recruit you, get you to, you know, commit or whatever. But it felt like everybody was just like welcoming. It wasn't like they kind of do now, where, you know, we weren't doing anything outlandish that would end up, or at least when I was on the recruiting trip, you know, would
make the national news.
National news.
And that comes from Coach Osborne, though, saying like, I'm not gonna have no craziness.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that's when first of all, we were the Cadillac of college football at that time too. You know what I'm saying? To where just the brand spoke for itself. And not that you didn't have hiccups from every team, because you're gonna have that. But the way that we got guys was like, I never forget Hines Ward visited us, stayed at our place.
Yep.
It was me, Tommy Frazier, Barry Miles, Tyler Williams, and Hines Ward was so cool. But he realized I ain't coming here to sit for 3 years behind Tommy. I'm from Georgia. I can play it. My mom can see me play at home. So, and it was, we had a lot of good guys like yourself, and you ended up staying here. You ended up making that commitment. Jay, what other schools, what Nebraska that you would have went to? Okay, before that, if it wasn't Nebraska, what was your number 2 school?
I was probably set to go. Well, my number 1 school, even before Nebraska, was Miami.
Dad's
father, like son.
Yeah, like they called. This is back when they could call, like, say, like July 1st, you know, and I had my own phone, you know, little line, because I was, you know, waiting for that. You know, you waiting at 7 o'clock in the morning, that bad boy to ring. They called and offered, and you know, I kind of committed. You know, didn't hit the airwaves or nothing. But then I think they kind of felt like, since I was a legacy, that I was in there, and then it gave me more time to think. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, I didn't know, you know, it was the offensive line coach that offered. I didn't know, you know, I kind of felt like, you know, is this a real offer or whatever? Right. I didn't tell anybody except my dad. So that was my number 1 school. That's family, and that's what I grew up a Hurricane fan. And then again, like, you know, we played Lane Kiffin and them, you know, played well, and then next thing you know, Nebraska was calling. Iowa was on me before Nebraska. They had a running back coach. His last name was Triplett. We had a great connection, along with their defensive back coach. And I went there, and that's probably my closest number 2. You know, Miami was in the extra stratosphere, but they went on Pell Grant probation.
Imagine that.
You know, and so then I was like, my dad ain't gonna be able to see me play maybe once a year.
Right.
Then I started to think, which kind of correlates to Nebraska kids or whatever, when Nebraska tries to, you know, when we had the Cali-Nebraska thing, I'm thinking like, all right, I'm from Minnesota. If it came down between, say, like me and Aaron Davis, that's from Florida, you know, their obligation is going to be a kid from Florida. How realistic chance are they really? Because I looked at the roster, they had like 6 cats that weren't from Florida, or like Georgia down there. So I'm like, all right. Then I came to Iowa. Everything was all good. And actually, on my recruiting trip, Tavian Banks took me out, who was one running back.
He's a bad boy, man.
Me and Tim Dwight. You know, Tim Dwight was yoked up then, still
fat,
but you could tell he was enhanced. His brother was balding in high school. Like, bro,
what type of stress you got? You already going bald.
Right. And we went. They took us to Iowa, you know, basketball game, did the whole thing. And
Hayden Fry, the coach. That time?
Yeah, he was. And so we're sitting in there watching tape, and I'm sitting there like, you know, in my mind, I'm like, I'm coming in and taking cat spots at safety. I know that for a fact. Because he was like, you think you could do that? And I'm just like, yeah, I think I could do all right. You know, but it was me and Eric Thinpig. He actually ended up going. He was from Chicago.
Yeah.
So they were real honest. You were the 2 safeties that we want. Eric's already committed. You 2 guys will be there, you know, 4 years to be, you know, freaking frack or whatever. And then as soon as he showed the tape, and I was literally ready to commit. Matter of fact, I called my dad this morning. I'm like, this is where I want to go.
But you were like 190 pounds at that time, right? Like a safety size. You weren't a linebacker size. I remember your freshman year.
But I was knocking cats' heads off. I played 2 games, 2 games at safety, and I was headhunting. You know, so
confidence has never been an issue.
But it was. I mean, there was cats laid out. That's one thing. I wasn't going no interceptions, and so I remember calling my dad, and I was like, I think I like this place, and it's closer.
Yeah.
And he stopped the tape, and I remember Coach Triple was like, I got something to tell you about for you to think about or whatever, and hopefully this doesn't, you know, stop you from like coming to Iowa. And it was something like I did too good on the ACT. You know, because I actually studied for it versus my GPA. It had to correlate. It was Iowa, Arizona State, who was recruiting me as well, and then USC, who was not recruiting me. Those 3 schools had this, like, it had to, you know, be a correlation. So I would have had to go to summer school and not get credit for it. By then, I was like, no.
Then I'm not going to get penalized for doing well in the ACT, basically.
Then Nebraska was, you know, started to kind of heat up, you know, because it kind of correlated with that game. Northwestern was up there. I remember Northwestern, and that was when they went to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah,
that Gary Barnett and all them. Yep. Pat Fitzgerald was a linebacker.
Yeah,
Autry was the running back. And we sitting. I
forgot about Autry, man. That was a bad.
Those were the PlayStation games.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
doing work, and they had like one receiver.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there. It was Coach Barnett and my dad and me, and and he was telling me about the alumni, Chicago. It's a big market. After football, you have a job, and we got it. I'm like, yeah, okay, I could do it. He's like, you're gonna be part of the program, part of the continue to be successful. And he's like, I was like, look, coach. He's like, you got any questions for me? I'm like, look, man, I'm thinking like Northwestern is like Stanford, and I know how much I like school and studying.
Right,
not that much. So I said, I knew I got in by interest, you know what I mean? I said, what's up? How you gonna? I'm thinking like year 2 or 3 when the school gets hard. How much they eligible? He's like, Coach Barnett was like, man, you ain't got to worry about that. We'll get you in, right? If you know my dad, he had coffee. He had coffee, and I can't say what he said. So he stands up and kind of slams his coffee, on the thing, and he wasn't mad. He's like, yeah, you gonna get it. You gonna get his, what in there, but how you gonna keep him in there? How you gonna? He's like, because my dad was like, how you gonna keep him eligible? But then he said, I got one rule. He's like, once I hand him off to you, his better not be coming back here without no degree.
Right.
So it's on you. and so that was it, man. But it really came down to Iowa and Nebraska. Because they did tell me they could kind of find a way for me to get around going to
circumvent that.
Yeah.
Yep.
It can, you know what it is? Coach Osborne came the day before you guys were leaving off to play Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jay, we love that.
Right.
Come on, we don't care. Your ACT score is adequate from what I understand.
Oh, I was in there. I had a 24. I had a 24. I know he's thinking like he's looking at the GPA, how this brother get a 24. But I'm in there. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna tell you what Coach Osborne did.
What did he say?
He came to school, and that was when they couldn't even like talk to you.
Yeah.
So it was essentially he could just look at you, just kind of make sure that you're somewhat what they say. And he talked to my coach or whatever. But then when he came to my house, he talked to me for a little bit. But he broke Chuck Foreman down. Like,
that's how
systematically. Like, because my dad was like, hey, he going to Miami. My uncles went to Miami. This is a hurricane house.
Mm-hmm.
Sell me on my dad. He knew everything about my dad.
Yeah.
About my grandfather playing at Bowie State, play basketball at Bowie State and all that. Next thing you know, my dad was like, yeah, okay, I'll be okay with you going there.
You know what, Jay? Coach Osborne was one of the ultimate closers in college football.
There's no doubt about it. You
hear stories from Ricky Simmons to Tommy Frazier, where Tommy said Lou Holtz was at his house and made his mom nervous because he was walking around so much. Coach Osborne went there and took care of that. With the great Chuck Foreman, your pops went there and took care of that. Story after story after story, Jay, where he closed deals, man.
Well, Coach Osborne, I remember hearing stories, and it's legendary that even when he walked onto a high school campus, word got around that it was like presidential visit.
Yeah.
Like Secret Service is here, and Tom Osborne's here, and he is coming to see Jay Foreman.
Right.
So then all of a sudden the teacher's like, oh, Tom Osborne?
Right.
Jay, you need to come.
No matter where he was at in the country.
Yeah. And he walked in, and there was,
Partner of the C.
Yeah.
They got me out of Dwayne Perjak was my favorite teacher in high school. Mm-hmm. And I was in his class, and they came running there, and Jason Spinharney came in there, and he was like, Jay, Coach Osborne is here today.
Tom Osborne.
and literally came into class, and Dwayne Perjak was like, all right, you can leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know nothing about Nebraska besides Miami would break them off come January 1st or 2nd.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
And think about this, Jay. Your recruiting class was the one that changed the trajectory,
right?
As far as championships go.
I told Coach Osborne, I was like, man, you ain't start winning until we got here, right? You need to. Hey, man,
I never heard that.
Yeah, man. Like, hey,
Jay was like, did that brother fall down the parking lot, hit his head?
Hey, I remember saying, hey, yes, sir, I would love to walk on. I would love to.
I told him after the first one, I said, Coach, man, y'all needed a little bit more spice, man, because we kind of setting stuff off in the dorms. We need you need to bring some life to this program. No, I'm just playing.
Folks, that is from the Hall of Famer. Those are the stories that these kids today We'll be sharing 15, 20, 28
Hopefully.
years ago now. Yeah, for
After
Jay as well.
After they win.
Yeah, now if they're lucky enough and blessed enough to walk away with 3 national championships, that's even better. But those are the stories that make today fun for a lot of those athletes and their families. And you heard of here first, 93.7 The Ticket on the drive with AD and Raph. And
Hold
folks,
on. Hold on.
We got action?
Uh-oh.
As we have a new LOI, it's fast.
This
Prince?
is big.
Prince Will, you the man. Prince Will, you the man. That's his name.
Let me see.
Prince.
You guys try to pronounce it, and then I'll let you know how you guys do.
I'm a million.
Nope.
A million. Nope.
Prince.
I'm gonna say Prince. I'm a mama to Sakusa. I'm gonna say it in the mama to Makusa. I know
Prince Well, human.
How do you say his last name?
Here, I got it.
Oh, you got to read it.
I have to visualize
and we got to come back and talk about him.
Prince Will Uman Mielin.
Wow.
Million.
Uman Million.
Uman Mielin.
What position does he play?
6'4", 225, man.
Sacked by number 91, Prince Well, Nanamunalan.
Bingo, exactly. Exactly.
Bring it up third down.
We're going to pay some bills. We're going to come back and talk about Prince. You.
Number 97.
You're on the drive with AD and Rav. We got Foreman in the house. We got Gates in the house. We got Nick holding it down. We'll be right back on 93.7 The Ticket.